Abrahams Wilson. I'm a filmmaker and I'm the producer-director of Under Our Skin.
My name is Chris Newby. I'm the senior producer on the film and a science writer who did a lot of the research behind the film.
The first question that I always get asked is, why did you want to make a film about Lyme disease? And it really reveals that most people think that it's such an obscure issue and that it's not so important to make a film about. And I guess I was coming from the same place. When I first started the film, I didn't have an axe to grind, or it wasn't that I didn't have any political motivation behind it, or even really personal motivation. What happened was a friend of mine here in San Francisco got very sick with neurodegenerative problems, severe cognitive problems, and nobody knew what was going on. And so she finally got diagnosed with, I think first it was MS, multiple sclerosis, and then ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which is basically a death sentence. Now, that's pretty awful to get that diagnosis, and we were all very upset and concerned. But then she kept looking, and she ended up getting a Lyme disease diagnosis. So when I heard about that, I was just shocked. I was shocked that Lyme disease could do that. I was shocked that it wasn't just out in the East Coast. My twin sister had Lyme disease years ago, and I just remember she was always sick and tired and complained a lot and couldn't get help. And that was all I knew about Lyme disease, which is probably what most people only know about Lyme disease.
My interest in the film was personal. My family went to Martha's Vineyard for a week, and then 2 weeks later, my husband and I got very sick. We came down with a classic case of Lyme disease and 2 other co-infections. And it took 10 doctors and $60,000 in a year to get properly diagnosed. And when we finally were tested for Lyme, because I asked all the doctors along the way to test us, which was about 10 months into the process, I tested positive, and they said, well, that's a false positive. And then they tested me again, and I tested positive again, and they said, well, these tests don't mean anything. The chances of you getting Lyme disease would be like winning the lottery, and they fired us as patients. And then we eventually found a doctor through an internet support group who treated us for Lyme disease and co-infections, and we got better. So I teamed up with Andy to do the film to really explore, you know, if we had a classic case of tick-borne diseases, why did it take that long to diagnose it? There seems to be like a huge gap between what patients are experiencing with the disease and what the so-called experts at the major universities say it is.
So Chris's story is extraordinary on one hand, that she and her whole family went to Martha's Vineyard from California. They all got sick, or at least she and her husband got sick with Lyme disease and couldn't get a diagnosis here in California. I mean, it's really outrageous what happened to them, but it's not that extraordinary. It's actually a very ordinary story. What we found working on this film was that same story was repeated 100, if not 1,000-fold. People who were sick, who would go to their doctors, who were not getting diagnosed, who were told that there's nothing wrong with them, that it's in their head, and yet they thought they were dying. So, like Chris says, the gap between patient's experience and the medical orthodoxy is just enormous, and we're hoping that this film will help bridge that gap.
So after all our screenings, people always want to know what's happening with the characters. What are their updates?
Yes, they do, and I think the one sort of thing that everybody has in common is everybody's getting better. It takes a long time. And had we sort of addressed this as just a news piece, let's say, you wouldn't get to see that. You wouldn't get to see that people can actually get better.
Well, I'll interrupt you there. After a year of filming, a lot of people were worse off than when they started, and we were going, oh no, this whole film's going to have a horrible downer ending. But because we filmed people for 3 years, almost all of them got better, which we didn't know in the beginning. When you choose a character, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And what's so important about that is because both for the patients who don't think there is hope, they get sick and they don't think that there is light at the end of the tunnel, our film shows that yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And on the part of the sort of medical orthodoxy or the medical establishment, what this shows is over a long period of time, or a longer period of time, people do get better if they're diagnosed and treated accurately. The assumption is they don't get better because they don't have chronic Lyme disease. And I think our film proves that chronic Lyme disease does exist, and treatment for chronic Lyme disease does help. So where are these folks today? Mandy is in nursing school, and she's doing a lot better. If you compared to how she was in the film to how she is now, it's really night and day. She's chosen a profession, nursing, in which she really hopes she can use her experience to make a difference and to help others. Dana is also improving. She's chosen a more, or let's say a less conventional approach to her own healing, alternative treatment, but she's also doing a lot better. Jordan is still off antibiotics. He's writing another book. I think recently he was doing an expedition in the Arctic. So he's really doing a lot better as well. Marlena, the ballerina, is taking college-level courses and is walking. She's not in a wheelchair anymore. One point of concern is that Elise's son, Jared, actually is showing symptoms of Lyme disease. Because they have the knowledge and because he is getting care, he's okay right now. They are concerned, but are hoping with constant monitoring of his health that he will be okay in the long term. One of the more sobering or sad developments, and also one that's very unexpected, is that Alan MacDonald, our heroic researcher, was struck with a form of neurodegenerative brain disease himself. He had to quit his job, had to sell the house, and had to quit his Lyme research. So it's a real setback for, I think, Lyme research that he can't continue some of his brilliant work. Our film has been called sometimes a real-life horror film, and I think to some extent that's true. But what worries me is that people go away with the message that our environment is not safe, that it's something that needs to be avoided, and that to me is not the point. It just perpetuates the idea that we are separate or need to be separate from nature. I think to some extent that's what's gotten us in this problem in the first place, this belief that we are above nature, that we can conquer it for our purposes and profit from it. We're seeing the proliferation of a lot of these microorganisms directly related to climate change, for example, and certainly our moving into more and more wildlife territories and also our travel habits. But nature is not a place to be feared, but we need to understand and we need to educate ourselves so that that we don't get bitten in a metaphorical and in a very real sense. It's really the awareness that is going to bring about change. And that's the way that we protect ourselves. Another common question that we get is, what is the audience reaction? And I think now, after the film being out for about a year, I can say that it's pretty overwhelmingly positive. People are shocked, just as I was shocked at the beginning of this whole filmmaking process to find out the reality of Lyme disease. People are shocked that our medical establishment is not doing more, and that it's letting so many people suffer and fall through the cracks. And people want to take action. And so my hope is that this film contributes to the current debates on healthcare reform in our country, both around medical research and health delivery and insurance. These are all areas that we touch upon in the film, and they're all areas that really are broken, and I think we all recognize that they need to be fixed.
And I think Lyme disease is a perfect case study for bioethics on how money can corrupt our medical information system. And you know, we need to figure out ways to keep that from happening. And the first step would be a Sunshine Act, where we really know where the money from Big Pharma and insurance is going. And then a next step would be to make sure that medical guidelines committees do not have people that can profit from the recommendations they make. You know, it's okay if researchers want to go off and patent things, but they shouldn't be writing guidelines that help line their pockets. But the bubble's bursting, and the information about this disease is coming out. More scientists, really good scientists, are willing to step up to the plate and put their research out there.
I remember Mandy early on, when I first started filming her. She had this sort of mantra in her head, and it was Lyme, L-Y-M-E. Listen, you must educate. And I think that's a really good sort of take-home message about this, that while there is a lot to be scared of and concerned about, what's really important is education can save us, and it can stop the suffering.
Amen.
It's funny for me to watch the film because it ends on a very happy note, but it's really, the film ends where my treatments began, and there was, you know, about 1.5 years of hell. But I'm out of that dark hole. I'm definitely out of that dark hole. But it's not to say that I'm 100%. I feel like I'm well, I'm better, but I have a long leash, you know, and I can only go so far. And, you know, I'm reminded I hit the wall again. So as long as I stay within that, I'm good. I can't believe I can do the things I do. I travel. I went for an hour walk the other day, and I was just fine. And it's the little things. I can chop vegetables without my arms burning. Yeah, it's funny. When I don't like to think about how it was. It really scares me. But it is a lot like waking up from a nightmare. I was in a very long nightmare, and I feel like I'm coming out of it. I learned a lot of different coping mechanisms. I think the most valuable one for me was, I don't know how to say this, but to not dramatize the symptoms. You know, I lost the ability to swallow. I couldn't see out of one of my eyes at one point. You know, things got crazy, and I would just say to myself, it will resolve. And any time that I got mad, angry, stressed about being sick, it would only get worse. So it's a type of surrender, I guess, but not in a weak way. It's a powerful surrender to what is, and you know, not giving into the fear. It's clear to me that people that take on Lyme disease or any other disease like an opportunity for transformation are the ones that make it through. For me, the way I got out of the darkest moments was looking around and saying, what can I do? Instead of saying, my whole life is over, I can't do anything. It's like, okay, what can I do? What do I have? What do I still have? And being grateful. for those things and being grateful for the beauty around you, and that's medicine. I just think it's important to look at the big picture, and you know, to me, the ticks, you know, it's terrifying. And now I actually do go out and walk in the grass and everything, and but they're really just a messenger of a planet that's really out of balance, and we shouldn't be angry and sort of single out one thing. Lyme disease is huge, but it's one of many things that are showing us the real problems we're facing. So whatever we can do in our lives to, you know, to fix that, to look at our planet, to look at our world as a whole, and our bodies, and how we relate to it. Where would I be if I hadn't started treatment with Dr. Klinghardt? I think I would have been dead, to be honest. The rate I was going down, it was pretty scary. And I mentioned that in the film, that I was resigned to dying. I was okay with it because it was way too painful to be alive. A Lyme patient, after so much pain, relentless year after year, you just split. I can't do it anymore. And I was happy to leave. But when I met him, I knew he was going to bring me back. And I think I said, it's like, wow, that's daunting. But I had a partner, and we did it together. And I remember clearly in one of my appointments with him, he checked me out, he looked at everything, and he said, "Welcome home."
I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Into the Light Gala, hosted by Dr. Joseph Jemsek, and this is the first time Under Our Skin will be shown at a theater anywhere. Since the film, I took a little bit of a break from medication, and I recently started it back up. Right now I know it's definitely going to be oral meds for 3 months with possibility of more, and I am working about 30 hours a week. And I'm going to school, doing the prerequisites for nursing. This is my last semester, and at the end of this semester I get to apply to a program. Comparing how I am now to how I was in the film is just night and day. It's no comparison. It's no comparison. I'm not 100%, but I don't have much further to go. Sean's health is great. He went to the doctor, and he got tested. It did show that he could have possible exposure, but he's not exhibiting any signs or symptoms. So that exposure wouldn't necessarily have happened from me, or it could be from me, but he's not exhibiting anything to be concerned about. I don't really think that I've done too much to help others, in that I'm not. That's why I'm going back to school for nursing, because I would like to help others. I don't think that I was in a state where I could help other people. I'm glad that, you know, the viewers just watching and seeing my situation and what I went through, I'm glad that people have said to me that it's helped them, because I was worried about that. And honestly, that's helped me. So just knowing that I wasn't going through it alone, that there were other people being filmed and other people that were coming up to me and saying, you know, thank you. It was really great for me to see what you were going through, because I knew what to expect for myself. And it's been really great. It's been really positive. I believe that my story can give hope to others in many ways. One way is I was treated with the standard 2 weeks of antibiotics, and it didn't prove to work out in my favor. So those who have a difficult time with Lyme disease, getting it diagnosed, getting it treated, I understand that. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. And now with creating awareness, I think that the doors are going to open even more. There's a lot of people that contact me. I would say that I have to be conservative, I would say that I have like 5 new contacts a week. And it's sometimes it depends, you know, if it's May, Lyme Awareness Month, it's more like, you know, 5 a day, 10 a day. Concerning the success of the film, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm hoping that it increases in popularity and that it helps create more awareness and leads research and better tests and then eventually, you know, a cure.